Hello you there, I am Mr. Crosswalker, and today, I am about to tell you about one of the scariest stories I've come across. This is the story of Dad's coat. So if you are ready, let's dive into the mystery.
I am Paul, and this is my story. It was another Monday, the kind of day that you prefer to be dead, boring, cold, lifeless. The sky was gray, full of clouds with no sun on sight. I had 8 lessons that day, and every single one felt like an eternity. Jay and I walked to school together like we always did. He was my best friend back then. Jay was tall, dark skin, and strong, about 6'3", with a presence that felt unshakable. We joked about how ridiculous the day was shaping up to be. We used to walk every day to school together from the Malaroo Street. Malaroo was the main street in our town. Lokiva. Its length was about 2.2 miles. Everything in school went fine, beside the boring, of course. Except in English class, our teacher announced a book report assignment. She wrote it on the board in big, bold letters. Book report. I remember groaning. I hated those assignments. Not because I didn't like reading, but because we didn't really have many books at home. That night, after dinner, I asked my mother, where do we have books? She told me to check the attic. The attic, a place I never ventured into. It always seemed off, like the kind of space that holds secrets you're better off not knowing. But I went up there anyway. The wooden stairs creaked under my feet as I climbed up into the cold, musty air. Dust hung in the beams of light that filtered through the cracks. Old boxes were stacked, and shelves lined the walls, filled with forgotten things. Books, clothes, trinkets. That's when I saw it. The coat. It was hanging in the far corner, as if it had been waiting for me. Black, sleek, and beautiful. Something about it drew me in. I couldn't resist. I pulled it off the hanger and held it up. It felt heavy, yet comforting, like it belonged to me. I brought it downstairs, and when my mother saw it, her face changed. She smiled, but there was something behind her eyes, a flicker of pain. She told me it had belonged to my dad. He died when I was just 2 years old. She didn't like talking about him much, but that night she shared a little. About how he used to wear that coat everywhere. About how he was taken from us, under strange circumstances. She said I looked good in it. Handsome. That night, I wore the coat to bed. I don't know why. It just felt right. But that's when I saw it for the first time. A figure, dark, shadowy, standing in the corner of my room. I thought I was imagining it at first. My heart raced, and I pulled the covers up to my chin. But it didn't move. It just stood there, watching. But when I blinked, it was gone. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe I was tired. Maybe it was a trick of the light. But the next night, it came back. And the next. And every time I wore the coat, the figure got closer. Always just standing there, in the shadows, staring at me with a presence so heavy it felt like the air itself was suffocating me. I couldn't take it anymore. One night I grabbed the coat and ran to the forest. I found a clearing and lit a fire. I threw the coat into the flames, watching as it burned, the fabric curling and blackening until it was nothing but ash. Relief washed over me. I thought I was free. The next morning, the coat was back, hanging in my room, like nothing had ever happened. I ran to school panicking. All Malaroo Street, 2.2 miles, I felt like I was losing my mind. At school, while presenting my book report, I saw it again. The figure, outside the classroom window, staring in at me. My voice trembled, and my hands shook. But no one else noticed. No one else could see it. After school, I walked home with Jay. I didn't tell him anything. How could I? He wouldn't believe me. But as we walked, something changed. The air grew colder, and the streets fell silent. I turned to say something to Jay, but he was gone. Everyone was gone. The entire world felt empty. And then I heard it. A whisper, faint but clear.
It's almost time.
I froze. My heart pounded in my chest. And then I woke up. Jay was shaking me, telling me I'd fainted. I didn't understand what was happening. That night, as I lay in bed, the figure appeared again. This time, it didn't just stand there. It moved closer. It whispered.
I am hungry.
I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. I just stared at it, trembling. Then, with a voice that felt like it came from the depths of a nightmare, it spoke again.
It's either Jay or you.
I was paralyzed with fear. The words didn't make sense at first, but then they did. And in that moment, I cracked under the pressure. Jay, I whispered. The figure disappeared. The coat burst into flames, and I thought it was over. But Jay didn't come to school the next day, or the week after. His parents were frantic. The police searched, but they found nothing. When they asked me if I knew anything, I lied. I told them I didn't. I was too scared to say the truth. Now, a year later, I think I know what happened to my dad. He must have made the same choice. And now, I live with the guilt, wondering if, someday, the figure will come back. For me.
Well, that was weird. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your footsteps light. You never know who or what might be following. Please subscribe and like the video. See you next time.